Hey, we are here once again in this wonderful and engaging place. Thanking God for this great opportunity to share with you. And we are still in the midst of this pandemic. And I just want to thank God for where we are in Trinidad and Tobago because we just came out of the carnival season. And things could have been worse, seeing that we had so many people here. I am thankful to the level of leadership displayed by our Prime Minister and his cabinet. It is indeed a sterling display of leadership. This is a novel situation. There's no there's no handbook as to dealing. We would have had different plagues before, and probably they would have gone back into history to see certain things that were done back then. But I must compliment the Prime Minister for his for the leadership that I've seen displayed, and that is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about leadership. To the churches, we are thankful for your prayer for this nation of Trinidad and Tobago. I have not used this forum to deal with politics or to speak certain things to this nation, this beloved nation. But as I said, we can no longer sit on the wall because there are people who do not have this country's well-being, at heart. There are people who are seeking power, as I would have said. We are responsible. There were many times, and I still do, speak about politicians and their lack of integrity and how they have failed. But I'm coming to realize that the people must take responsibility for the decisions they have made, because a lot of times we are choosing leaders who reflect our own values. So a government is a reflection in, and we're talking about a democratic government here. It is a reflection of what values are in the people. And if we are immoral, if we are thieves, if we are, as I said, we are under the stupor of our ethnicity, we will vote a government that upholds and sustain that immorality and that stupor. And so the people in this great land of Trinidad and Tobago must come to their senses. We need to judge righteous judgment. As I said, our population is not an illiterate population. And we need to hold governments accountable, whether they are whatever, as I said. We need to hold parties who are in government accountable. No government is without fault. The only perfect government there would be, and I invite you to join in. Jesus Christ will establish a government in the earth to whom all governments will bow. Yeah? And this is not preached enough, but that is exactly what will happen. The only perfect government to come in the earth is the government led by the King of Kings. He is earth's rightful ruler. And so there is going to be an establishment of that kingdom. In fact, the process to that operation began 2,000 years ago. And so we continue to lift up this nation. I'm thankful to Miss Makila Pandey for making the statement that she made. We need people to deal with ethics in this nation. We need people to deal with policy, not just to attack the government because you want to attack the government. We need people, if you are opposing, that you present credible arguments to show why the government's policy, is, foolishness, or you can only render it inoperable, by presenting proper arguments, not coming with some of the foolishness that I have seen. The media too has a responsibility to report unbiasedly. And I question some of our media houses. Yes, I question some of our media houses, whether they are in their ethnic binding or in their political party binding. They are bound again by a particular stupor. And we need to be free of these things. Everyone has a right to discover his roots and be proud of his roots. Everyone, whether it be African, Indian, Chinese, everyone has a right to know his roots and to be proud of his roots. But when it comes to leading a multicultural nation like this, you have to be very careful. And we must be led by principles that transcends just my ethnic persuasion or my ethnicity. Because there are principles that governs humanity, like honesty, transparency, integrity, and so on, that governs all of humanity. And so we must hold parties accountable. I am thankful to Pastor Coffee, who came out and made a public statement, because at one time I was wondering whether Pastor Coffee was first an Indian, then a Christian. Because when the UNC was in government, I don't know, there was nothing. There was, I really don't know. He was just, in my mind, a voice for the UN, the United National Congress. And pastors have a responsibility to hold the government to account, whether you vote for them or not. Because our standards, the principles that we hold, must be higher than us. We must have a reference to a standard, that when we move from that standard, we can look up and say, yes, this is the standard. We have fallen from that standard, and hold everyone must be held accountable to that standard. So Pastor Coffee worried me, whether he was first an Indian, he was first ethnic, then a Christian. Totally bothered. But he came out and he made a very good statement, and to that we are thankful. And again, to the churches who have been praying for this nation, and I know some people may feel that I have something against the church. I have nothing against the church, but I will continue to challenge the church and hold the church accountable to what we are claiming to be. And so the prayers of this church, the prayers of the church in this nation has been and continues to be a formidable force in dealing with the wizardry and witchcraft, something that I mention and will keep mentioning, the wizardry and witchcraft that has been going on in this nation. And listen, you will be surprised to know that people with master's degrees and PhDs walking in their jackets and ties looking very stush, where they are going in order to get power and to keep people out of power, to displace people, to derail people. You will be surprised, not only in the politics, it is in all facets of your life. In your workplace, you will be surprised to see, or you'll be surprised if it is revealed, the people who are walking about looking, like I said, very stush and most prolific and undefiled. You will listen. It will unravel you if you were to get an insight into what is going on into some people. But I want to speak about leadership, and I want to speak to the church also with reference to, I see that people are standing up against the call not to gather. If I'm not mistaken, and I stand to be corrected because I've not read a lot of law in a while, but the state can temporarily suspend certain rights. They cannot abolish those rights, but they can temporarily suspend certain rights in the interest of public safety, and public health. Public safety and health, there are different things where the state can temporarily suspend certain rights. Okay, so we need to be careful with how we are moving, right? Because your rights are not absolute, right? Rights are not absolute, because even in criminal law, you would have heard about the right to silence, and Section 34 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act gives you an insight into a police officer questioning a suspect, asking him a question. He does not answer the question, but when he appears in court, he chooses to rely on some fact that he did not state while being questioned. That evidence will not be able to be submitted, and that an adverse inference can be drawn from your silence in such a case where the police ask you a question which they think you should have answered, and you refuse to answer it. So your right to silence is not absolute. I hope that I had that clear, because I'm moving from things that I would have read a little while ago. Just to give you a little insight into what's happening. But I wanted to speak on leadership, and it is quite interesting that John Maxwell, one of the leading gurus in leadership, has a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I want you to take note that he says the laws are irrefutable. They cannot be refuted. And the first law is the law of the lid, L-I-D, the law of the lid. And listen to what he says. He says, in the history of the world, not one time has a government, a company, education, not one time has any of those entities was able to bypass, go above, and keep going where the leadership level remained the same. He said not one time in history, any organization, any company at any time was able to move past the level of its leadership. In fact, he says that your business organization or whatever entity, your team, cannot rise above your ability to lead. He makes another statement that history proves, regardless of your country or culture, everything rises or falls on leadership. Everything rises or falls on leadership. Right? So the law, he says the law of leadership is true regardless of culture. It's true in every country. He says your business organization cannot rise above your ability to lead. Your business organization or whatever entity cannot rise above your ability to lead. Now he says that these laws are irrefutable. Now here what is surprising, because this starts from in the home and filters out leadership in the home. And you find happening even in the home. And as Christians, we understand, we believe that the man is the head, but the man and the woman plays leadership roles for the children. And you will notice that a lot of times blame is placed on the people below, and the leadership do not want to take responsibility. In fact, a lot of times we issue remedies not to deal with leadership, but to deal with the people, trying to rectify the people instead of trying to rectify leadership. Now, if this law is irrefutable, it would mean that any business organization, home, team, who cannot recognize this law, it would mean that that business, that entity, your home, is in trouble. Because you would find you have organizations spending a whole lot of money on people to come in to fix their staff, when in fact the problem in the organization, the team, the political party, whatever it is the leader. You cannot fix the organization, the home, the team if the leader is off course. The leader is the cornerstone. The culture of an organization is determined not by its staff. The culture of an organization is determined by its head leadership. The policies that are formulated actually speaks to the culture that the organization wants to engender. And you have rules and regulations in order to assist people to keep in line with the culture of the organization. You will notice in Mr. Rowley's leadership that he spoke to people. He spake and he said that he wanted people not to gather. And he did not want to use a punitive measure in order to get people to do so. However, at some point in time, the punitive measures had to come in force. Because if the punitive measure does not come in force, because the law is for the lawless, and if you continue to permit lawlessness in your home from your children, or lawlessness from your team, you're running a football team and a few of them not adhering, at some point in time, there has to be a consequence for those people's action, or you destroy the morale, you destroy the team, because other teammates will be watching and saying, but it's okay to break the law. It's okay not to adhere to the culture that we are trying to foster on this basketball team, because you have a few people, they don't care about the principles and they continue to play. And so the leadership is responsible for also enforcing the rules and regulations, whether that be in your church, whether that be in your, like I said, your political party, whether that be wherever you are. You understand? So I just want to end again, because there's much more when we are talking about leadership. The first law, it is irrefutable. The state of your organization is a reflection of its leadership. And some of us find it very difficult to deal with this law. It is irrefutable. And if you cannot recognize this, then you are in trouble. You are in trouble and the organization is in trouble. Your master's degree in divinity, your master's degree in whatever, your Bachelor of Science degree does not make you a leader. All you have, all right, I don't want to trivialize your education, because I know how challenging it is to go after these degrees. However, it does not make you a leader. And we have to take responsibility. I was reading and listening to John Maxwell too speaking. There are some people who are called, I think they are referred to as change agents. One of the things that they do when they go into a company that is failing, one of the first things they do is get rid of the management. One of the first things they do in certain instances is to get rid of the management, because the state of the company is a reflection of its leadership. And so I would end here today, once again giving God thanks for where we are, giving God thanks for this great opportunity. Remember to keep hygiene, keep washing your hands, keep the faith. May God continue to be with us and bless us. Stay strong. Thank you for listening.